I'm fired up for 2025. I know 2024 for our listeners was a bit of we'll say a stumbling year a little bit, I think, for us from a podcast standpoint, just because you and I had so many things going on with our regular day-to-day businesses. It was challenging for us to be able to chase people down to record episodes and do the
Yep.
things. And I didn't have an editor for half the year. So I was trying to do the few episodes we did do. I was trying to do my own and doing a poor job of it. And so, yeah, I am very optimistic for 2025. So I'm
Yeah,
psyched.
and I think all of that stuff is very important for people to hear. You had a lot of changes. I did as well. We made things more efficient, so people see that we're actually doing this too, and not just fucking podcasters.
So welcome back, everyone, and to Blue Collar Startup. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Nelson, joined by Derek
And the
Fox,
other host,
the
yeah,
other
that's me.
host. And we got a lot to talk about today, and we're actually doing back-to-back episodes. We're going to do this first episode, and then right after that, which we will, launch as separate episodes. We're going to do an interview with someone else as well. But today's episode, everybody, we're going to do a quick kind of like here's what our goals are for the podcast for 2025. But then, Derek and I talked about me re-interviewing Derek. I think it was episode 2
One
was
or
the one that
two.
was
I
it
think
2
it was the one that we recorded in the
in the
warehouse,
garage.
and you couldn't, and we learned pretty quickly that wasn't going to fly.
Yeah. So I wanted to refresh your episode but also more than that, as we've come there, we've kind of built a little bit of an audience here. I really think people don't necessarily understand the credibility that you have in this space, or at least I think that you have in this space. And so I want to refresh who you are and kind of your background so people can understand when you're talking on the microphone, you're speaking very much from experience of starting a business from scratch and growing it to a very successful business. So I want to make sure that we have those conversations. Yeah, and I'm excited to be here, man.
Well, it's certainly it doesn't feel like, you have your wins along the way, but it doesn't feel like success. There's always something to improve on and to do. And it's amazing because I've listened to all of our episodes just to re-listen to the content and you know see where we can improve. But also there's so many pieces of information that I've taken, since we started this, from each guest that we've had here.
Yeah.
And I can pick bits and pieces from every episode and, learn something, from them. And I think, to your point, my credibility, I don't really know if it's right to call it that. It's essentially we're facilitating the conversations, and we can do that because we're in the same boat as a lot of our guests.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking before the podcast, and we've both made several changes in our businesses throughout 2024, and we've made our own mistakes and rebounded from them and overcame obstacles, and really the same thing that all of our guests do. So it's more reassurance that you know we're going through the same trials and tribulations that all of our guests are, and we learn just as much from all of them as hopefully they take away from the other episodes of the show. So it's really cool what we built. We got a great community, I think, that started. We have a good foundation, but 2025, I'm extremely optimistic with the path of what we're doing in getting young people interested in the trades. And you mentioned Cadence, who we're bringing on. She's Saratoga BOCES graduate, and she went through the automobile restoration program over there, and now has had some significant career success and is located actually out in Colorado. So again, this Zoom platform that we've been doing from time to time, it's not as personal, but we can also reach people throughout the country and bring people on the show that we normally wouldn't have access to. So it's very interesting. So we're really excited. And I think the push to get our episodes in front of the youth and the kids that are making the decisions of what am I going to do next? What am I going to do after high school? What am I going to do if I'm sick of high school and want to do something different? There's there's options there. And I think it's pretty powerful that, some of these folks can see that and, be inspired by the conversations that we have on the show.
Yes, I echo everything you just said. And one of the things that actually recently inspired me was we had a listener reach out to one of our guests that we had on the show, reached out to Ivan Bell, and I won't out the listener, but it was really cool. Ivan texted me at like 6 o'clock in the morning because he knows I'm up at 4, and sent me a screenshot. He's like, "Hey, this is really cool. I just got an email from this guy out in the West Coast that's going to start a septic company, and he heard my episode and wants to chat, and I thought that was so cool because that's exactly why we do this show, right?
Yep.
Is to not only connect people to mentors, but to inspire people into making, into taking the chance to start their own business. And it was really cool. So I'm fired up. I'm really excited about this year, and yeah, I am really excited also to close the door in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. Like every year is like that though. You get to the end of the year and you just kind of want to wash your hands and move forward. So
Yeah,
fresh start. But we're super excited to be here. And we were just talking about our goal setting and what we want to accomplish this year for all the listeners. And one of those is obviously dropping an episode a week, whether that's with a business owner or a recent graduate or a current student, or an interview, somebody who's not necessarily in the blue collar trade world, but who is a support staff or somebody who can help those business owners or those students make those decisions and give them the right information to help them be successful. So a number of different things, but we want to drop an episode a week. That's our goal. And, we hope that we're able to continue to grow our listenership. If any of our listeners do want to jump on the show or get in touch with us, we're very easy to get a hold of. Our web or our email address is actually on the website. So bluecollarstartup.io, go on there, send us a note. Let us know what you want to hear. If there's specific topics that you want to hear covered on the show, we're open to those suggestions. So please feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and you can also even comment on a YouTube video if that's where you're watching it, or like Derek said, email us. And you can always, also find us through our main companies. Derek owns a few companies now, but his main company is going to be the Daigle Cleaning Systems. Sorry, Derek. I'm always going to mess up something. I guess that was what I messed up for today's episode. Is the name
Hey, you're doing all right.
And my company is 5 Towers Media. You can find us as well, and contact us through those websites and through our main businesses. We're very happy to either put you in touch with someone or set up a show or whatever it is. Just definitely connect with us. I know that's Derek. For us, that is a big part of our goals this year, is increasing the communication inside this community that we're a part of. So as well as raising more money for scholarships. So if you guys know, maybe you do know, maybe you don't know, over the last couple of years, we've been able to leverage the podcast to help raise money for scholarships. We've given some money to students at BOCES, our local BOCES chapters, also over to HVCC, which we now call the Blue Collar College. And a couple of those organizations that have made that possible, obviously MLB Construction, great people over there that have been so kind to gift us some money so that we can then basically re-gift that in the form of scholarships to some students. And also the folks over at the Michaels Group. There's great people, and really appreciate their support, and we're looking for more of those kinds of people. So if you'd like to get involved with us, and again, this podcast is not about Derek and I making big monies as podcasters. It's really about the community and raising money and doing a lot of good. So we hope if you want to get involved, then please get involved. And then, there's also some other organizations that are involved with us. Derek can speak to those as far as, his company, Care Clean in Saratoga, AGC, that that the podcast is just starting to talk to a little bit, and they're a great organization.
So Brendan, yeah. So, and that's a good point, Mike. I was going to bring that up. So AGC, Associated General Contractors, we do had, and we have had Brendan Manning who is their head of education on the show. I forget what episode exactly he was. I'm going to look it up.
That's right.
But fantastic episode, great organization. They really push and lobby for all of our general contractors in New York State. They have a lot of educational opportunities and programs. It was episode number 46. So
46.
take a
Nice.
listen to that, and we're hoping to work a little bit closer with Brendan and his team over there, bringing some of their members on the show, getting more involved with them, as well as with Pam and Doug Ford. They were both also on the podcast, and let me look up
Pam
what.
Stop. Pam
So,
Stop. That's Pam's last name.
Pam
Pam
Stop.
Stop and Doug Ford. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And their organization, which
Episode 43.
43. Nice. And hopefully they're coming back on. Yeah, here in the next. I
They
know.
have some real exciting things going on.
Yeah, they do.
Again, their mission is very aligned with ours, as is AGC. And our goal is to have these organizations work together to help accomplish the goal of getting our youth interested in the trades from an earlier age. So exciting stuff.
Exciting stuff. So Q&A with Derek.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
I mean, I'm in the
Let's
hot
start
seat.
out. Well, I think one of the important things to kind of do to help people understand is to kind of set the scale, right? Because it's really easy for people on a podcast that have a company and maybe it's small and they do okay, but to kind of put things in the scale, Derek, share with us the size of your company, not from a revenue standpoint because that's nobody's business, but from an employee count, those kinds of things. What can you tell us about Daigle Cleaning Systems?
Sure. Well, I think from a size standpoint, we've come a long way, and we've been around now for 13 years. It was 13 years in November, which we're extremely grateful for. It's a huge milestone, for us. And looking back 13 years ago, it's you have kind of visions of where you want to get to, and it seems so far out of reach, but we've been able to accomplish a lot in that short period of time. And right now, we currently we're based in the Albany area. We have roughly 150 employees, that operate here locally. We have expanded a little bit outside of the Albany region. We cover all the way up north past Lake George, and then also over to Syracuse, Rome, and Utica. A lot of good development, and that market is really prime for growth, which is great to see. So we've started taking on some new clients in that area. We have a great area manager. She's been very successful in her role so far, and we're excited to see what Ashley can accomplish. But we have 2 franchise locations, one here locally in the Albany area, and then another in Westchester. And those locations have grown with our model. It's been a little bit of a different experience, compared to managing a staff member or a W-2 employee, to then going to a business owner who you're coaching and helping mentor and helping them grow and get outside of their comfort zone. So it's been just a giant learning experience, to be honest with you. And there's no secret formula. There's really nothing that I can say that made it happen overnight, so to speak. It was just years of mistakes,
Stubbornness.
stubbornness, making repeating some mistakes, not repeating some others, and learning and growing. And that's, for me, I think the biggest thing. And you asked me, Mike, what our biggest challenge was, which is a tough question to answer. And I gave it quite a bit of thought, and I could list off any number of challenges or mistakes or issues with, technology, or, how we were running some of our processes, or, mistakes that we made in the field. But I think really the biggest challenge that I've had to overcome from an ownership standpoint is keeping pace with my own development as the company grew. And, if I could go back 13 years and say, to 22 or 23-year-old me, hey, do this differently, it would be, you know, take your time and make sure that you're learning as you go and make sure that you're developing yourself from a management standpoint, um, as the company grows. So that way, the growth of the company doesn't outpace what I'm capable of managing. Because really, I've found that it comes down to being able to build a cohesive team unit, and
Mhm.
not just one as the company as a whole, but multiple, the different departments and different facets of the business and services that we provide. All of those have to work together with each other. And in our business, it's a very people oriented business. So they're our greatest asset. And as the company grows, you have more people that are there that, expect you to, I guess, take care of them and make sure that they're being led in the right direction. So I didn't really see that as my younger self. Now looking back, that's really what it's all about, you know.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of folks, try to do everything on their own, and you have to for a certain period of time. And that's why it gets so difficult to be able to let go of some of the reins and put processes in place, and then make sure it's the right fit for that individual to be able to handle those processes. People want leadership, and that was the biggest challenge for me. 22-year-old, I didn't know anything, and it took me a long time to get to the point where I've realized that. And we've really done a lot of good things. We've made a lot of changes, as we were referring to earlier in our conversation. We made a lot of changes, from an internal structure standpoint, and we moved some individuals around, and we refer to it as them maybe not being in the right seat on the bus. um, if they align with our company values, and we have a clear vision, mission, and values that we follow, we go over them every week in our weekly meeting. So our entire management staff, all of our cleaning technicians, everybody knows what that is, and we live it every day. And if something doesn't align with those values, that's what we use to base our decisions off of. Um, Having that clear set of values has really made all of the difference. And also getting the buy-in from our team that they trust me to be able to take them to that vision, and being able to fulfill it, and vice versa, me trusting them that they're going to do their part, give it 100% every day, continue to grow, continue to want to learn. And you really don't have to motivate people when they have that in front of them. They
Yeah.
they see the path. We put a career roadmap in, a few years ago, and when we hung that up on the wall, everybody was just blown away. They could finally, for the first time, be able to see, well, if I want to get here, here's what I have to do in order to do that. Here's the
Yeah.
certifications that I need. Here's the education that I need. And then it becomes a conversation of, okay, cool, you're interested in that. How do we get you there? So that's really been, I think, the biggest thing for me, and the biggest challenge that I've overcome. And there's so many moving pieces in our business, and it's very, very, challenging because of technology. Everything moves so fast. Somebody requests something and they want it done right away.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for since we started. So we've gotten better at being able to manage that and take a lot of those instances in stride. And me being able to stay calm, cool, and collective with all of that, all of those moving pieces, and being comfortable enough to not have my hands in every piece of it. Um, because it got to a point where you can only do that for so long, and it's not sustainable, right?
Yeah.
So you end up driving yourself nuts. And I think that's been the biggest key, especially over the past, and this is recent. It took me 12 years to learn all of this. And I think we're in a pretty good place right now. We're excited for 2025. I have a very positive outlook on how things are going to progress and move along, and I'm excited to see how it goes.
I have about 50 questions from that your answer there. And for the listeners too, I want to just back up a little bit. Derek, you're a very humble person for what you've accomplished over the last 13 years. For people to understand the scale of growing a business from 0 employees to 150 employees, or even 100 employees, or 50 employees. It's no small task to do that in any industry. I don't know of any industry that can go to that many employees easily. And so I was laughing because you answered the question. You're kind of like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, but, obviously, I mean, that is a huge accomplishment to grow a business that large, employee count wise, without even getting into revenue costs, or revenues or any of those things. But um, and then so
Yeah, and
wanted,
listen, in our business, it's very people oriented,
yeah,
So every time that we bring on a new customer or client, it's we either add a person or we're able to put that on somebody's schedule. The majority of our employees are part time, so but yes, it's moved along pretty quickly, and again, that's part of the reason why I had to grow and develop so quickly. It's because you're growing, but then everybody's looking at you to say, okay, lead me and do the right things, and we've done that. And once people start seeing that and they trust, what you're doing and what the intentions are, and they see the progress, they're more likely to follow you. So it took a while to get there, but yeah, I
well, I mean,
appreciate
it's
that.
you're basically, you're being, I don't want to say asked, because your employees aren't asking you, but they need you to lead them, right? As you said, but
Yeah.
you're also trying to lead your employees in many cases through something that you've never been in before, right? Like when you go from 500,000 to $1 million in revenue, and you've never done $1 million in revenue, like that's your first time, right? Like, and then the
Yeah.
employees need you to be that leader to bring them through what that means. And
Well,
it's
we've had, yeah, and just referencing back to what we talked about in the beginning, where I think every single person that we've had come on the show, they've all had that same experience
Mhm.
where it's uncharted territory. You're not really sure there's no clear roadmap, and you kind of forge it yourself, and you figure out, okay, this works, so we're going to keep doing it. This doesn't work, so we're going to stop doing it. And every single, I think, entrepreneur and business owner goes through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people plateau out though, man. Like, that's what, like, you see business owners, they've had the same business for 20 years, right? It hasn't grown, hasn't shrunk. It's saying the same thing. And I think that, like what you're saying, like you constantly need to be changing and evolving and learning and figuring out who you need to be in order to hit the goals. Like that's my question every year when I do my goals. And I ask our leadership team the same thing. Like, here's what we're trying to accomplish this year. I've already asked myself the question, who do I need to be in order to achieve this? Because I know that the person I was that got where I got to previously is not the same person that's going to get me to that next step on the stairs, right? And I asked our employees the same thing, our leadership team, like, who do you need to be to make these changes in your skill set or your mindset or whatever it is? It's just you gotta keep evolving. I think it's really cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. So, and to that point, we've gotten a lot better over the last couple of years with planning and
mhm.
forecasting and setting goals, because you have to. Um, I wasn't really taking that seriously for a while, and it was kind of, let's just go 100 miles an hour and see where we land, right?
Just
And
sell it and figure out how to do it.
exactly.
Yeah.
But when you have people that are dependent on the system, you have to forecast and plan for some of that so you can start to somewhat try to predict, what the outcomes are and where you're going to land and what you need to do to get to that goal.
Yeah.
And that was going to be a question that I had for you. I know you were mentioning that you guys just did your goal planning, so you've done this for years, a lot longer than I have. So what are some of the tactics? How do you approach your goal setting? In your company at the end
Yeah.
of the year.
It changes a little bit every year. I kind of fall back on like, the E-Myth model or the EOS model of, I sit down and I figure out, I look at what my longer term goals are, my 10-year goal. And that's always in line with my company vision of where I see the company in the future and where we're trying to grow into. And then I look at my 5-year. and I lay some specific things out about my 5 year, and then I look at my 3 year. And again, the 10 year, the 5 year, the 3 year, these are all pretty I don't want to say generic. They're not generic, but they're all pretty, like, not a lot of detail, right? It might be a revenue goal, it might be an employee count goal, but it's not like pages and pages of things. It's just like my 10 year goal is just basically a sentence or two. My 5 year goal is maybe a paragraph. My 3 year goal might be 2 paragraphs. And then my 1 year goal, that's where I really start looking at, for us, I look at the different revenue streams or product streams that we have in our business. And I
Yep.
look at what I want to grow based off of this previous year. I use 20% as a guideline, we'll say. Obviously, you want to grow more than that, but I know that 20% is a realistic number for growth in most economies for people that are doing the work, right? And so, like, if I'm under 20, then I know I'm just this flat out slouch. And if I'm over 20, then then I'm doing what I should be doing. And then I basically create 3 to 10 things that need to happen in my company for each one of those revenue goals. So if I'm trying to increase website clients by this amount, like, what are the things that need to happen inside the company, whether that's structure, employees, skill sets, 3 to 10 of those things, I create bullet points. And then I go through, and then after that's all done, that basically becomes my yearly plan. And then I go back through and I start putting dates on everything, like, by what month do I need to have this completed? And then so that helps me, because when it comes to your, like, shorter term goals, like 1 year I consider a short term goal.
Yep.
It really becomes like a time management thing. It's not a question of whether or not I can do it. It's a question of whether or not I can manage myself and the company in order to do those things. So, like, I just look at it as time management, which is, in order to have effective time management, there's 3 things. You gotta know what to work on, you gotta assign priority, and then you gotta work it until it's done. And so as I look at my yearly plan, that's what I do. I start by assigning priority, and I put the month on it. That way, if it's January and I've got something that is supposed to be completed that month, I know what I'm supposed to be working on. I'm supposed to be working on that thing. And then it's just, like you said, checking boxes. I just start marching through that plan over the course of the year. And, the reality is I'm not going to do all of it, because my planning is usually, I'm usually probably planning more than I'm biting off more than I can chew typically. But I know that I'm going to work like hell to try to do everything. And then there's always a couple of little extras on there too, where I'm like, well, if I get this done, then I'm going to do that. Here's that one more thing that I'm going to do. But that's how I
Yeah.
approach it. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but
No, I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do it. It's interesting that you brought up, EOS, and for any of our listeners who haven't read the book, we've talked about it a few times. But
yeah,
Traction by
I love
Gino
it.
Wickman, definitely a game changer. And that again, that really got me, to change the way that I looked at goals and problem solving within the company as we grew. And I think that's a really good tool for people to be able to reference. So
Huge. And I know that EOS is built for people that have, what is it, like a leadership team of, at least 3 to 5 people, and then probably another, whatever number of employees. But I think EOS is a book, the Traction especially, but that system is that even a solopreneur can use that system and just modify it for their needs. I love it. I think it's great.
yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you. And every company's different, in a number of ways. And it's funny, with every book or piece of information, you kind of take bits and pieces from each, and plug them in as it makes sense. It's the full model is not going to work for everybody, but there's definitely tidbits that, can benefit everybody.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I know we're getting close on time here, and we're gonna jump off and then restart for cadence. But
So there's one question, Mike, that you did put down that you wanted me to answer, and I think it's important.
yeah,
And that was what were the circumstances that drove me to launch.
yeah,
And I did want to talk about that because I've shared a little bit about my story in the previous episodes, and kind of my path and how I ended up where I am. But uh, I was facing the same dilemma that a lot of students are currently facing today, and that is, what the heck do I do with my degree? And I had considered alternative options. However, in high school, the thing to do, and it still is in a lot of high schools, is go to college. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's definitely a path there, and I had a great time in college. Very lucky. Went to RPI for 4 years. Was very fortunate to do that. Played football for a couple years. Had a great time, and I learned a whole lot. Just from going to school. So I don't want to discredit that, but I ended up graduating, and I was kind of looking at, okay, what are the available career paths here? And you know, several of them that I could have pursued didn't really require that piece of paper or that degree. Now, that's not to say that that degree didn't teach me a lot of things along the way, because it did. It taught me how to learn and how to continue to learn, and I still do that day in and day out every day. So I'm very thankful. However, if somebody's hungry, motivated, and wants to learn, they can do it. So I graduated, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was actually working construction at the time, building houses, and everything from concrete to roofing, framing, finish work, painting. We did it all. And that was really cool in and of itself. As I was going to college, I was still working that job, and it allowed me to see the construction world. I worked with a lot of great people there. I learned a lot, and I still use a lot of that stuff to this day, when it comes to solving problems or projects around the house, rental units, that type of thing. I've been able to take that with me as well. But the reason that I saw an opportunity in this industry was simply the fact that it was limited resources to be able to jump into, and I didn't have any money, so it worked out well, and we were able to set things up and get things moving about 6 months after graduation. And luckily, my mom Michelle agreed to jump on board with me, and she's been a huge help throughout the journey, and the voice of reason sometimes. And here we are again later, and I'm glad that I didn't go that traditional route, and didn't necessarily take one of the career paths that could have been fruitful and fulfilling, but it was nothing that I really wanted to explore. I liked working with my hands. I had that background in construction, so I wanted to be around that environment, be around it somehow, and then eventually be able to tie that in down the road, which I've been able to do, fortunately. So.
Uh, and I know Cadence is jumping on, and so we want to wrap this up. But quick question. I was thinking about this earlier, Derek, with regards to that question and answer. You chose cleaning. Now, was this because cleaning has a lower barrier to entry because of some other industries, or was it because you saw an opportunity in the market that wasn't being filled? Like, what made you choose cleaning of all things?
There were a number of reasons. I think that there's always a need, and there's work around you everywhere. And that was appealing to me. There were commercial buildings and facilities, and I knew people that own multifamily properties and in commercial buildings and such, and um, they all had folks who would come in and take care of the cleaning and janitorial. So I saw that as an opportunity, and then you compare that with the barriers to entry, and I think it's $1,000 or $1,500 on a no interest credit card, and I paid
Yeah,
it back in 6 months.
yeah.
And that was how we got going. So the combination of those two things, I think locally there was an opportunity here, to jump in and put a new spin on the industry. And by
Hmm.
new spin, I mean implement some different technology and do things a little bit differently. And that's what we did. So uh, I'm extremely happy. Obviously with the choice, it's a great business, a great industry. I work with a lot of great people day in and day out, and yeah, we're looking forward, I guess, like I said, to 2025.
That's awesome. Well, listen, let's wrap this up. We'll get Cadence going on here another episode. Appreciate everybody listening, kicking off 2025, and tune in if you're listening, it'll be next week, but for us, it's in the next minute here. We're going to talk to Cadence and talk to her about her experience with going to BOCES and then getting a job and her whole story. So looking forward to that. So thanks everybody for listening. Thanks, Derek.
Thanks, Mike.
LB Construction. Thanks, Michael's group. Thanks everybody who are sponsors and support the podcast. So